Hey there, welcome to Mark in the Park, the podcast. I'm your host, Mark Milow, speaker, storyteller, and healthcare advocate. And this is the place for personal reflections, stories about mindset, hobbies, and purpose. And a reminder that life doesn't stop at a diagnosis. In fact, often the real journey begins after. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Mark in the Park, the podcast. Today, I have a very special guest on, somebody that I've been following on TikTok for quite a while, and somebody that really, quite honestly, has some great story to tell in a very unique way. Today's guest is Jeff Boag. Jeff, thank you so much for being on, but I think a lot of people are going to know you as the Kilted Dad. And so, Jeff, welcome, and thanks so much for being on.
Oh, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it very much.
So, to the point of the Kilted Dad, I was following you for quite a while in that platform under the Kilted Dad. I just love, I'm a dad. I'm an athlete. I'm a former athlete, and watching it in the Kilted Dad, seeing you, pitching logs and whatnot, and then hearing about your accolades as a college athlete with the javelin and whatnot, piqued my interest. I thought this is a very interesting guy, and I was following you for quite a while about that. And one thing I always appreciated about you too is that you're a definite family man, and that is something that spoke to me too. Is like, I like this guy, so I've been following you for quite a while, and I just wanted you to know that that's from a distance. You're being admired from some very good character traits there, and that's kind of a cool thing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, TikTok has been an interesting journey for me. I don't know if you've ever heard me talk about this, but when I first got on TikTok, it was just to police what was going on with my daughter. So I had, at that time, I have 5 kids. And so with my 2 youngest, they were on TikTok, and I'm like, well, what is this, right? And I've been a dad long enough to be like, I better keep my finger on the pulse of this so I can protect them. And so I got on and I'm watching it. I'm like, oh, this is like America's Funniest Home Videos. I can kind of just watch and laugh. And at the time, my wife was actually recovering from surgery when I first had my first viral video. And here I am working from home. You know, we're still locked down from COVID. And, at the time I had a house full of people. I still have a house full of people, but I had some adult children that, were furloughed during the lockdown, and they were living at home with us. And I had these 2 kids, and we're doing homeschool. I'm working from home. My wife's recovering from surgery, and I'm having to take a kid to work and back from work, and they forgot something. And here I am just feeling run ragged. And I remember looking at my phone and saying, I don't know how she does it, in reference to my wife, right? And I'm like, I do not know how she does this. And was like, I'm always shopping, I'm always running, I'm always here, I'm always there. And like, I had this like exasperated, like, oh my gosh moment. And that was my first viral video. My previous videos were like, like, hey, this is a beautiful place I went to, here's my family vacation. And that big one, when it went off, it was like crazy. Like, I open up the app and all of a sudden it's like 600,000 views. I'm like, what? And then all the comments started in about the, hey, welcome to the club, buddy. Welcome to our world. And it was in that moment that I had a bit of an epiphany. And it was, this is a mechanism that allows me to tell my stories. Like, it allows me to quickly remember something and tell something. And here's the part that it kind of gives me chills. Right now, this is 2021. And I remember having this distinct impression, a very strong impression of like, hey, man, you should probably record your stories, because I don't have videos of my dad and I miss him. This is a great mechanism for me to have kind of that oral history and just say, hey, here you go, guys. Here's a picture of dad when he's young and healthy, because I'm not always going to be that way, and you just never know. Now, fast forward to 2023, all of a sudden I get diagnosed with my young onset Parkinson's. And that's, I think, how you and I came into contact, at least me starting to follow you back, was, oh my gosh. And I'm so grateful that I found that platform and that I've been able to create the content to help other people. It's helped me more than anybody on my journey. I needed to have kind of that creative outlet, just to get my feelings out there, right?
Yes.
And sometimes just to be distracted. But I primarily have created all that content for them, even though they sometimes don't like seeing Dad's content.
Yeah.
Most of it is there, and for their use. And I've always kind of had this approach of like, hey, I'm just going to talk to everybody like they're my friends, and if they want to watch it, that's great. If not, no worries, swipe on.
Right.
But it's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. That's actually why I started my TikTok account, and I used to have an Instagram account, but it's actually a gaming account. I was one of those old man gamers. I used to stream on Twitch, and I had an Instagram account, and I shut that down when I had a business that I was running by myself. But when I was diagnosed, I was actually told there's a lot of good information online and in these online communities about Parkinson's, because people talk about what they go through, and that's so much more valuable than what a doctor can tell you or what a website. And I thought, yeah, that's a great idea. So I created my accounts to follow them. And then I literally put my camera in front of myself, put my back against a tree in a little park by my house, and just started vlogging what I was going through because I needed an outlet. And I always tell people that my posts on social media were really for me, not for anybody else. I didn't care if anybody else watched. And I was recently, I was actually speaking at a conference in Las Vegas recently, and I was asked by somebody in the audience, why did this start? And I said, this was my therapy. And the more that I poured out my therapy into the camera, the more people responded and said, hey, I go through that too. Hey, you know what? When that happened to me, this is what I did. And all of a sudden there was connection. And that connection caused my interest in the online to grow. And we have some tremendous support in that community online. Absolutely. It's a wonderful thing. So 2023, you're diagnosed. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that diagnosis story? How did that come about? How were you going from hardworking man, family man to also, I have what?
Well, it started where I honestly was trying to hold my phone. Right. I was like holding my phone and I noticed it shaking, and it was just on my ring finger. And I'm like, well, this is super weird. Right. And I have kind of a force trimmer. Like I don't have a rest trimmer very often. I have a force trimmer. And so I'm like, well, this is weird. And it wasn't getting better. And I was kind of laughing because I have these, I don't know if, there it is, like my hand strengthener.
Absolutely.
So I bought this bad boy because I'm like, man, my grip sure is getting bad. And then I bought one of these, right? Because like, oh, my grip's sure getting bad. And then I'm like, man, you're too soft. Like you need to go. I work in an office, and I'm like, man, I need to get back to the weights, and I need to get back after it because my grip's getting weak. And all of a sudden I noticed like, hey, this hand's being kind of weird. So met with my doctor and said, hey, this is interesting. And he goes, interesting. He's like, hold out your hand. So I hold out my hands, and then he goes, nope, not Parkinson's. And I'm like, holy crap. Like it never occurred to me, like literally never occurred to me that it could be something systemic. I was thinking it would be, pinched nerve, carpal tunnel, something like that. And so that's where he started. He's like, hey, let's go see if we can eliminate like carpal tunnel. So I went to, I don't know what it's called, but I got like an EEG or whatever, where they're like shocking my whole body, just trying to see if the nerves are working right. And the nerves are working right. And then he's like, let's see what's next. Okay, I know MS. And then I'm like, holy crap, MS? Like, what the hell? Excuse me. But it's like,
yeah,
what are you talking about? So then they take me to the hospital. Now I'm a very big man, and I go to get this MRI, and I'm sitting there, and they're like, oh, I don't think you're going to fit. I'm like,
wow.
That's a nice one, right? It's like, okay, I don't think I'm going to fit. So then they take me out to a truck in the parking lot, like this great big like semi bed, so that this fits, right? And
Oh,
so they're putting me in the halo. And if anybody's had an MRI of their brain and their neck, you know what that's like. And so they're trying to shut the gantry or the halo thing on me, and it's pushing up here. And it's like this. I may be chubby down here, like, but this is my chest, like. And so they finally get me in there, and I get the MRI, and I hold my breath, and I come back, and they're like, "Well, the good news is there's no lesions, but bad news is I still can't tell you what's wrong with you." Now, in the meantime, on my own, I had gotten on a wait list at University of Utah's Movement Disorder Clinic in their neurosciences unit. And it was a 9-month wait.
Wow.
And so I said, hey, I want to get in there. I want to see the best. And I'm going through this journey with my doctor, and we're probably, at this stage, I'm probably a year into it. Right, with all these tests, I'm journeying on, and they send me to a general neurologist, and they have me do a few basic tests, and I'm fine. And they like, you look really stressed. You look really stressed. And I'm like, well, no kidding, I'm really stressed. There's something wrong.
Yeah.
Now, then the university calls, and they're like, hey, we had a cancellation. Can you make it down here? Now, it's about a 4-hour drive from my home in Idaho down to University of Utah. And I made my way down there, and I was able to see, now get this, this is probably the most ironic name of any physician in movement disorder in the world. Dr. Al-Sheikh. Can't make this up. Dr. Al-Sheikh is
Wow.
she's a Parkinson's expert at University of Utah, and she was overseeing, like, I saw a resident, and the resident's like, hey, I'm going to go get the attending, and the attending comes in, it's Dr. Al-Sheikh, and she's like, hey, do this, do that, and it's like, try and tap your foot and try and rotate your hand, and she's seeing this spasmodic behavior. Then she, has me sit up and stand and watch me walk, and within 15 minutes, she's like, definitely Parkinsonian. We'll just have to determine which type. And, in that moment, like so many of us, especially if you have followers that have Parkinson's, it's like, wait, what? Like, what do I do now? Where do I go now? And I'm by myself. And I overheard this doctor talking to the resident, right? She was in a teaching moment. And I have orthostatic hypotension, right? So I can lose my balance when I stand up, and she was concerned that I might have MSA, which is multiple systems atrophy, which is a type of Parkinsonian disorder that's actually fatal pretty quick.
Yeah.
And so I'm overhearing this, right? I hear her say, hey, this looks like MSA based off of all of these things. So,
wow.
Of course, what do? I go to Dr. Google, and my world ends, right? I have a 4-hour drive home of just being numb, and then having moments of sobbing because I don't know what's going to happen to my family. And honestly, for me, it was like, and I don't mean it literally, because obviously none of us want to suffer, right? None of us want to suffer. But for me, my concern immediately went to my family. We're a single income household, and I have my oldest son suffered a really serious brain injury, and so I'm taking care of him and his wife, and it was just right on the tail end of COVID, and it was just a tough time, and to try and make sense of it. So I went my first year not only dealing with this diagnosis, but basically like, oh, do I have MSA, and when am I going to know if that's what it is?
Wow.
So I go into my year checkup, and I'm like, hey, is it MSA? And they're like, well, why would you think it's that? And I'm like, because I heard you. Like, and she's like, oh, no, you responded to the cinema. Like, you're fine. I'm like,
oh, my gosh.
Yeah, that would have been nice to know. but that was kind of my diagnosis journey from my first doctor's visit to diagnosis, 18 months. And I think like many people with Parkinson's, I can go back and notice my first symptoms probably in 2017.
Mm.
And many of my first symptoms were related, what I thought were to my weight and my age, right? I was getting into my later 40s. I was, as you mentioned, I was a pretty competitive athlete through college, and had bad knees. I've had a couple of knee surgeries, right? And so I remember probably when I was 45, my family says prayer together, like we'll say a household prayer, and oftentimes we would kneel. And I remember getting to a point where it's like, man, I'm having a really hard time getting up, and having to kind of like crawl over to a couch to push myself up. And, I was like, oh man, your knees sure are bad. Your knees sure are bad. And then, those classic symptoms with your arm swing and your posture, and, those started to show up. So the fact that the first neurologist missed it, I can excuse a family doc missing it. Right. I can excuse them. That, like, young onset's so rare. But a general neuro missed, in my opinion, pretty classic symptoms.
Right.
And I was like, man, this stinks. But here I am.
There you go.
Still kicking, still moving, still making a difference.
Well, you just mentioned something that your family has a prayer time. So if you don't mind me asking, what kind of support did you get from your family when you're diagnosed? Like you said, I understand MSA is something not a lot of people know about. It's one of the Parkinsonisms, or atypical Parkinson's, and that is a very serious condition. So to drive home 4 hours thinking maybe you've got that, you're not sure, that is a devastating blow. And anybody would need support at that moment. So if you don't mind me asking, how did your family support you at that time?
So I called my wife on my way home and said, hey, they told me I have Parkinson's. And at this stage, my wife didn't really understand what that meant. I did not tell her about the MSA diagnosis. I sat on that for a month. And when I got home, she hugged me, and she's my rock. We've been married for 31 years, together for 32. And she just immediately said, we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. And cried a lot, both of us. And then, and I think many people with chronic illness, especially illness that's, as I put it, it closes that window. Like we all think we have this, someday I'm gonna.
Right.
And when all of a sudden your someday is closing, right? It's like, yeah, it's right here. It's like, let's just go live this up. And so we went to Hell's Canyon to do this jet boat thing I've always wanted to do, right? It was my birthday. We always wanted to do it. And we're in Hell's Canyon, and I finally had to tell her that they thought it was MSA. And she cried and held on to me and immediately just said, well, let's get to living. And I say that, and I don't want to imply that we weren't before.
Right.
Because the thing that I always will say when I make TikToks about this is, like, we've always lived this way. What has been a challenge is to continue to live that way when your body's fighting you.
Right.
Which, again, you can understand is it's like, yeah, we get really tired, right? It just, life is more challenging, but to be able to maintain the things that were necessary for me to feel like well, and for me to feel whole, and for me to feel like myself, which has been something that's been really important to me, is for me to still be me and not let my diagnosis become my identity.
Yes.
Right. To not let my Parkinson's dominate every part of my life. It is a component of my life.
Right.
And certainly it's intrusive enough to to disrupt a lot of things and to change things, but it's not me. I'm still me. I'm 100% me. And my wife has been a key to that. Like I have this problem where I feel like I've let people down because I got sick, and it makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense at all.
Right.
But for me as this provider and this, I don't know, just the role I play in my family, I just feel like, man, I've let everybody down. And like nobody chooses this, right? Nobody willfully says, hey, I want this to happen. And she's been so good at letting me mourn and grieve appropriately. And I'm gonna say appropriately, because she's also really good at like, you're here. Life is good. Like we're living in the moment. Like let's not get so lost in this unknown future. The ambiguity of an unknown rob us of our joy today. And she's been really good at helping me with that. And I think that's an important message. Sorry. I think that's one of those important messages that I want to give everybody. Anybody who hears this is it's like, you cannot let an unknown future rob you of your joy today.
Absolutely.
Right? We have the opportunity today in this moment to choose how we want to live and what we want to do. And certainly there are ailments and disabilities and brain injuries and things like that greatly impact us. But one of the things that I've tried to focus on, and one of the messages post-diagnosis that I've tried to use my social media platform to teach is, it's like, tomorrow's never guaranteed. Make the most out of the day. And it's not just about adventure. It's not just about living large. It's about being well and healing and investing in those relationships. And for me, it's teaching. I have these 5 little people, right? Now, some of them aren't so little anymore, but it's like, what can I do to teach them?
Right.
What are those lessons that I want them to carry on in their lives when I'm no longer around? And that reality is going to impact everyone, right? Whether you are battling, like my son, he has a very serious brain injury. His future is very difficult. Or with my Parkinson's, or I just found out a good friend of ours has stage 4 lung cancer. Right? Life is incredibly challenging and oftentimes unfair to many of us. And we just have to figure out how to move forward anyway.
Absolutely.
And anyway, that's kind of just something I'm really passionate about.
No, this will introduce this week's edition of Mark My Words, because that is something I want to get across absolutely clear. I've always believed in living a way that I wanted to live, and kind of been a free spirit, wanted to do what I wanted to do. Parkinson's diagnosis came, and had a hard time with that, obviously. I really did. And there was a lot of pity party going on there. There was a lot of things that I went through. And you mentioned how your wife let you grieve. That is a incredible part of the process. You have to grieve, but at the same time, you can't stay there. And so one of my friends says, you can visit that area, but don't set up shop there, and having a wife that encouraged you through that was fantastic. But when I look at it, I said this at the conference in Vegas I was talking about, and I have to say this clearly so people don't misunderstand. My life is better since I've had Parkinson's, not because I have Parkinson's, but since I've had Parkinson's. And the reason being, my perspective is so different. The diagnosis has made me think differently about so many things, about what's important and what's not important. And I'm so much more happy with so many things now, because it doesn't take things to make me happy now. time with my son, time with my grandson is like, that's it. I mean, the things that make me happy now. And I definitely uh, have a perspective that's changed. And to your point, I feel like living now. I had tremendous support from a very good friend of mine. He was actually the men's pastor at the church I was attending at the time. He had stage 4 cancer.
Mm.
He was given a couple months to live. He actually lived almost 5 years with that. And when I got my Parkinson's diagnosis, I went on a men's retreat, and he and I were friends. And I'm just like sobbing about this diagnosis that I got. And he took me under his wing, and he said, anytime you want to call, anytime you want to, go through this grief, call me and I'll let you go through it. But to that point, if I got a little too far, he'd be like, yeah, it kind of sucks having a chronic illness, doesn't it? And I'm like, shut up, guy with a stage 4 cancer. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know if you've ever seen Dodgeball, but where he's lamenting to the bicyclist that had testicular cancer. Same thing. It's like, yeah, it must really suck, right? He put my life in perspective, and in a brotherly, loving kind of way. So he let me mourn, he let me grieve. But if I was pushing it too far, he'd be like, all right, come back a little bit, because he could speak from the point of, I should have been dead, 3 years ago, and I'm still here, right? And that perspective is so important to me. So it's so important that you keep your perspective, you enjoy living, you find a way to enjoy living, and you keep going. So thank you for sharing that. That's something that I feel very strongly, very passionately about. I love that.
Perfect.
So
And one of the things that I will also just mention through this, having my wife be my rock and helping to facilitate so many fun things. I made a social media post this summer on my birthday because one of the things that happened on that trip when I told her I had MSA is we took these big jet boats up and down these huge rapids. So you're in Arizona, it'd be like taking jet boats up the Grand Canyon rapids, right? It's amazing. And they stop at this huge rock and they say, hey, everybody can jump off this rock. Now, I grew up cliff jumping, like I love to do it. And it's my birthday. I was 50, how old was I? 52. And now, again, I'm unmedicated. I'm diagnosed with Parkinson's, but unmedicated at the time. And I froze. I got up on this rock, so I scramble off the boat and I get on this rock face and I'm frozen totally. And my brain's like move and I can't. Right? Now I understand what was happening, but back then it's like, come on, you wuss. Like, get going. And I get up there and I feel so unsteady and I'm like, what? And I make it and I jump off, but it took me about 15 minutes to scale this little rock. I have gone back every year on my birthday. And this year, here I am medicated 2 years in. And I scramble up that rock and jump off like no problem, like normal.
Right.
And now I'm 70 pounds lighter, right? I've lost a lot of weight. People are like, man, you look so good. What are you doing? And I'm like, I shake all the time.
I burn calories when I'm not trying.
Yeah, it takes a lot of energy when you're moving all the time. But anyway, having those traditions have been a big part of it. But the other thing is I can't use her as my therapist. And so I go to therapy. I have a good therapist that I go to because it's unfair for me to take all of it and just, she can't control it.
Right.
I share appropriately with her. And again, I work with my therapist to figure out, okay, what do I share? What do I not? Because I've met a lot of people who've had family members with Parkinson's and they're like, my dad never talked about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, that would be really, really hard. And so a lot of us men don't like to think about going to therapy, right? Or we don't have connections with other men where we can be open and honest. It's like, hey, how you doing? I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. That's the biggest lie ever told.
Yeah, exactly.
I promise any guy that tells you they're good, they're not good. I promise they're not good. There is something they're dealing with that they're not willing to talk about. And having friendships, having connections, having, therapists, whatever, that can help us mourn, work through the grieving process, I think is so important. And on that, I don't want to go too deep into it, but it's like sometimes I felt like it was linear. It's like, okay, if you look up the grieving process, right, there's all these different stages of it. And sometimes you feel like, oh, I should be progressing in this cadence, and it's not that way.
Yeah.
It's not that way, where it's like, I think anybody who's gone through any type of a grief journey, you can have these waves of grief, whether it's death or illness or divorce or relationships, like anything that we mourn, and allowing ourselves to feel natural and authentic emotion is the only way we can get through it.
Yep.
Because if we just compartmentalize it and we stuff it down deep, it will manifest itself in very unhealthy ways.
Absolutely. I agree with that. To your point, getting through what I've gone through, it's taken a couple of therapists and a psychologist to get where I am now, and I've got a lot more work to do. So now another question for you. Well, first of all, a question for you. How do you make holy water?
Holy water, I don't know.
You boiled the hell out of it. Okay, so with that in mind, faith.
Boom.
My faith has helped me, and it's been a place, like I said, my good friend was from the church. He's one of the pastors. Whatever people need to get through this, therapist, faith, whatever you need, community, when whatever your community is, that sphere of influence around you that helps you through is what you need. And I've been fortunate to have some people of faith around me, but also I have gone to multiple paid therapists and psychologists. I've done what I felt like I had to do to get to this point, and it's not easy. I'll tell you that. So I don't know if you're a person of faith that would share that, but I'm just saying for me,
Yep.
That was something that really helped me out.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll go into just my opinion on that as a Christian. Is I feel like everybody has to go through their own version of Gethsemane and Golgotha.
There you go.
And if you're Christian, you'll hopefully understand that reference.
Yep.
We all have our journey, and we all have our suffering, and it's not pretty, and it's hard. And how we make our way through that and who we bring through that with us, I think matters a lot.
Absolutely. Well said. Okay. We are at our time limit here. So believe it or not, it goes so fast. This is the part of the show that I call Get to the Chopper.
Get to the chopper!
Because we're going to be extracted here, going to go home, going to live our lives, looking back on what we talked about today, or even something we haven't even touched yet today. What is the one thing you want our listeners to take away from today's show?
Life's too short to be boring. Get to living. Get out there. Get after it. Tomorrow's never guaranteed. And there's no time like today to get started to work towards something that you want to do. Like
absolutely,
it's now's the time.
Well, and my takeaway from today is what you said earlier. You can't let your Parkinson's define you, and this applies if you have Parkinson's, if you have MS. Maybe you don't even have a condition, but maybe you've got some a serious financial condition or something where your life is very difficult. That circumstance does not define you. And your life is much greater than that one circumstance. And I love it when you said that because with Parkinson's, I mean, I'm a Parkinson's advocate. I go speaking about Parkinson's. So it's very easy for me to get into that mode of representing Parkinson's, but it is not my life. And that's why I try and focus on things in my social media about when I go thrifting or when I restore an old pot or pan and whatever, because life is so much more. So great stuff. Excellent stuff. So, okay. Thank you so much, Jeff, for being on today. I really do appreciate it. And I definitely would like to have you back on, because you and I were talking before on camera here about some stuff we'd like to talk about maybe in the future. An honor and a privilege to have you on, Jeff. I really appreciate that so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, so listeners, guys, got to follow him on TikTok. He's also on Instagram, the Kilted Dad. Got to check him out. I'm telling you, you will not be disappointed. Some great content. And for all my listeners out there, please like, subscribe, and follow, and all that other fun stuff. The podcast as well, so we can get the word out there. But I really appreciate it, guys. And as we end today's show, just remember, life isn't just about the destination. It's about the journey. The journey is just as important as the destination. So, guys, get out there and keep exploring. Thanks so much for listening, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for joining me on this edition of Mark in the Park, the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and leave a review. Your support helps more people discover the show. For show notes, updates, and future episodes, or to connect, head over to markinthepark21.com. Got a guest idea or a topic suggestion? Drop me a line at markintheparkpodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. And to all my listeners, this is Mark Milow reminding you, life is as much about the journey as the destination. So enjoy the sights and sounds along the way. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep exploring.